They got up, drove him out of the town, led him to the brow of the hill on which their town was built, so that they might hurl him off the cliff. But he passed through the midst of them and went on his way. Amen. The Message Bible said, that set everyone in the meeting place seething with anger. They threw him out, banishing him from the village, then took him to a mountain cliff at the edge of the village to throw him to his doom. But he gave them the slip and was on his way. God bless you, Lord. Your word is divine truth. I want to give honor to God for life, health, and strength, to Associate Pastor Reverend Chris, to all the ministers in the house. Truly good to see you, Minister Janelle, on today. To the new family members. Sister Lana, Sister Linda, Sister James, we are grateful to God. This is just a special day in the life of this church. And I just want to start by saying it must have been some sermon that Jesus preached right there in his hometown synagogue. I had to name it, we loved your sermon until. We loved your sermon until. It must have been some sermon that he got up and preached in that synagogue. He had gone to his hometown of Nazareth after being in Capernaum and hanging around the Syrophoenician people, the Syrian people, the Capernaum people. He was up there with all those Gentile people. Now he was back home in his hometown, preaching in front of people who knew him when they used to say he was knee-high to a grasshopper. People who knew him that could, be talking about him. Because, see, that's how God works. God comes in the midst of our mess, our gossiping, our backbiting, our lying. God shows up. And so he's in his hometown. They're talking about him because he had some kind of unscrupulous beginning. Or maybe Joseph is his son, maybe not. There was word out about 30 years ago that this woman was pregnant by somebody that wasn't Joseph. So, they're talking, they're gossiping, they're whispering. You know how we do. Come on, it's church. It's people of God. They do the same thing. It doesn't matter, 1st century, 21st century. We do the same kind of thing. But something took place because, he was there in the church. I'll say synagogue, but it's church folk. It's the Jewish community, but it's his church folk. And he got up there, he gave his sermon, and something happened after all that praise of his preaching, because after he was finished preaching, those folks were done with him. They wanted to throw him, the preacher, out of the synagogue, and they did. Out of his hometown where he lived. And they grabbed him, took him up a hill with every intention to hurl him to his doom. They had every intention of killing, murdering Jesus. Now, I would have understood their actions if he had done what you were talking about in your sermon one day, Dr. Ruth Schaefer, when you talked about the brood of vipers. I can understand if he got in front of them and called them a brood of vipers. Then you said, wow, he deserved that because he's calling them names. They feeling bad. You know how we feel if people called us certain outside of our name as a group. There are folks who just stuff to folks as a group. Put on black face and hoods and take pictures. Folks, you feel it as a group. Because that's not a great feeling when folks call you out your name. So I could have understood it better if he had stood up in front of the congregation and called them a brood of vipers. Last week when Dr. Phyllis preached, she talked about why did Jesus come? And she lifted up the passage of Jesus' first sermon. That's when he took the scroll of Isaiah and he said, the Spirit of the Lord God is upon me. The Spirit is upon me because he has anointed me to preach the good news to the poor, sent me to announce pardon to prisoners and the recovery of sight to the blind, to set the burdened and battered free, to announce this is God's year to act. So it's the year of Jubilee. It's the year of God's favor. It's the year that God is going to act. And I know the folks were wonderfully blessed. I'm not making this up. You can look at verse 22. It says, all spoke well of him and were amazed at the gracious words that came from his lips. So, he did preach it, and he must have preached a good word, because that's what happens when you witness the will, the work, the way, and wonder of Jesus in the world. You can't help but respond but with amazement. Wow, look at wonder in his words. And they came up and they said, wow, we loved your sermon. We love when you spoke about this is God's year of Jubilee, God's year of favor, God's year to act. We loved your sermon when you said that in you, Jesus, God's message is going to radically change the world. That in you, just belonging to you, God is going to disrupt the petty pretentiousness of privilege and power. In you, Jesus, there is passion love for the low, the last, the lost, the least, the unlucky, and the left out. We loved your sermon because we as a people are looking for help, for deliverance. We're looking for freedom from oppression from the Roman Empire. Jesus, you preached that thing. My God, you brought a good word to us and a good word for us. We loved your good news concerning the poor, the uplifting word for the vulnerable, the voiceless, the exploited, and abused, those who are oppressed at the hands of the dominant culture. Ooh, what a sermon! What a sermon you preach, Jesus! Wow, wow, wow! What went went wrong in that sermon? Where they wanted to take Jesus and throw him off a cliff. I think it's found when he reminded them of their history. See, so this is why we have to hear stories from history. This is why we need to be reminded of how, not only how God has worked in our lives, but we got to see the big picture. God has worked all over the world, throughout history, because sometimes things are simply forgotten or egregiously omitted from the pages of history. This is why we have to have Black History Month. We got to have it because we have to remember who God is, what God has done. This is why we have events and activities celebrating 400 years of Africans in America. For too long, too many folks' story has been missing from the history books. I don't care if it's the indigenous Americans, the immigrants, forced or otherwise, Black Americans, including slaves, the LGBTQ community, other marginalized people. These are all, the stories are crucial to our history. That's why we have to remember. That's why we have Heritage Moment. This is why we celebrate communion. We celebrate communion so that we remember. We say on the night he was betrayed, he told them, take bread. And whenever you do this, remember, not just recall the work God has done in me and through me and the work that God is continuing to do even now in our lives, but it's also to remember. Take your and remember that you are part of the body. We are members of the body. We're glued together so it's us to remember that we are one in the Spirit. We are one in the Lord. We love your sermon until you start talking about God coming to oppress could lift up the oppressed and bless the poor, and regardless of who they are and where they're from. We loved it while you were preaching what we thought was going to help us make our identity the big thing. We're the big brand. We thought that you were going to forget about those Gentiles that you have been preaching and showing miracles to. We thought you were going to be talking about building walls. That's all about us on the inside. We thought you were talking about making America